Hello everyone, Mark here, Mark's Max Muscle, and we have a very interesting video for you guys today. This was actually a fan request and voted for. You guys voted for this one. The 5 worst endings to a bodybuilding career. And there's many different ways I could do this, guys. I could look at their placings, things of that nature. But ultimately, the way that Dallas McCarver and Cedric McMillan left the bodybuilding world was absolutely hands down the worst, guys. It's the worst. They lost their lives. Tragic. Just utterly tragic. But for this video, we're not going to focus on that type of tragedy. And there is definitely several other bodybuilders that they died right smack dab in the middle of their bodybuilding career. But like I said, we're going to look at other aspects, like certain events that happen that ended their bodybuilding careers other than actually passing away. So kind of trying to stay away from that type of tragedy. Dallas, Cedric, may they rest in peace, and all the other bodybuilders that lost their lives during their career. Now in this video, we will be focusing on bodybuilding careers such as this gentleman's. This is Leroy Colbert, and he is number 1 on this list of 5. This dude competed back in the 1950s. And if you know your bodybuilding stats, the guys that competed back then, Reg Park, Steve Reeves, things of that nature, this guy here, I think he had the potential to defeat all of those guys. Look at the legs, look at the vacuum shot, and of course he was known for those arms. He had perhaps the biggest arms for his time. I love this picture of Leroy Colbert. He's saying, "Yo, what's up?" You know what I mean? He's like representing. He's awesome. He's awesome. He won several bodybuilding competitions, including the Mr. New York, they called it. Wasn't a New York Pro back then, back in 1952. He continued to compete until 1954 when tragedy struck. This guy was on his motorcycle and there was an oncoming car. He had to swerve and there was an accident. The car landed on his foot, for goodness sakes. So it was a terrible, terrible accident. He didn't die. Like I said, we're going to kind of stay away from that type of situation. But they were actually going to have to amputate his leg, the doctors. They managed to save it, but there was nothing doing. He could not continue his bodybuilding career. He couldn't squat, couldn't lift heavy ever again. And I mean, the guy's leg development, it was just... that in its own is a tragic loss to the bodybuilding world. So Leroy Colbert, he was obviously unable to continue an unbelievable bodybuilding career. And this guy was in his 20s. And he actually stuck around. He stayed in the bodybuilding community. He was friends with Arnold, all the top pros of his time. Still had some guns there, of course. Probably still worked out those biceps, triceps, but never continued on in his bodybuilding career. And that's the type of career we are looking for in this video. And that leads us to the second gentleman on this list, Mike Mentzer. He will be number 2. Unlike Leroy Colbert, Mike Mentzer, he actually had his bodybuilding career up and running. He won the 1976 Mr. America competition. I believe it was maybe one of his first big competitions. And then he went on to climb to the very top of the bodybuilding world. 1979, he took first at the Olympia in his class. He eventually lost the overall to Frank Zane. But if you look at the development of these two guys, and considering this was his Olympia debut, placing first in his class, I think the writing was on the walls. I think that a lot of people figured Mike was going to take that Olympia title and hold on to it for years to come. And then, the worst day of Mike Mentzer's life, the 1980 Mr. Olympia event. Out of nowhere, Arnold Schwarzenegger, controversially, I might add, makes his return to the stage for a one-off. Now, he was a promoter. He was friends with the promoters, friends with the judges. It was a fishy situation, let's just say. So Mike Mentzer, along with all of the other bodybuilders, we'll say most of them anyway, were very upset, and tensions Tensions grew backstage. I mean, it was a sticky situation. And then it happened. It all erupted. Boyarko said something, and Boyarko was a polite guy, and Arnold said something rude to Boyer, and then Mike Mentzer stood up for Boyer and said, "Listen, Arnold," I don't know exactly, it would have been nice to be a fly on the wall, but he said something to the effect that Arnold to keep his mouth shut or something of that nature. He shouldn't be there. And then Arnold says, "You listen, Mike, you placed second last year to Frank Zane because your big gut was hanging out." That's what he said to Mike, his big gut. And then it almost came to blows. Mike Mentzer, he was swinging at Arnold. Maybe. It almost did come to blows, though. They had to break them up, and it was an awful, awful situation. And what made this seemingly a great moment for Mike Mentzer into a near tragedy is that he didn't win the title. He didn't place second. He didn't place third. He placed fifth. They put him way down in fifth. And more than likely had something to do with the altercation, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and politics. But the ending result was Mike Mentzer, along with many other bodybuilders, boycotted the following year's Mr. Olympia. And a lot of them never competed. But the thing is, the following year after that, every one of them went back. They all competed again, except Mike Mentzer. That unfortunate incident with Arnold in 1980. Politics, call it politics, Arnold Schwarzenegger. That was the cause of Mike Mentzer to officially, unofficially, or officially, it was definitely official, he retired from pro bodybuilding. Never stepped foot on the bodybuilding stage ever again. What a waste. What a waste. I mean, you consider how good this guy was, his placings, his development. This would be the equivalent of Nick Walker quitting right now, never competing again. So, what a terrible end to a bodybuilding career. Number 3 on the list is Paul Demayo. Now, he might not be as famous as your Mike Mentzers, things of that nature, but this guy, for his time, he was actually quite well known. Look at the size of this guy's tricep. And he wasn't even known for his arms. He was known for his friggin' legs. Look at the size of this guy's legs. Actually, he was called Quadzilla after Tom Platz. I think he was the second guy to be called Quadzilla. But Paul Demayo, this guy competed in the mid-90s. Won his pro card, I believe. He took first place at the NPC Nationals in 94. And then he was invited, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember that correctly, he was given a special invite to the 1995 Mr. Olympia event. He placed 12th, but I mean, for a guy that was just an amateur 1 year prior, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So, in other words, Paul Demayo, he had it going on as far as a bodybuilding career is concerned. I mean, this guy, he was headed to the top. And then, much like everybody on this video, it was all stopped in one short little instance. Apparently, and I don't want to get into too much detail, there was some domestic violence, him and his wife. And he was actually put in prison for 2 years. 2 years of serving hard time. And he couldn't come back from that. He got out of prison, and his life spiraled downward. Not only did he never compete again in bodybuilding, but the guy, without getting into too much detail, I mean, you can look up some videos if you want, but the guy threw his life away. And it is very unfortunate and very sad. Eventually he did pass away in 2005. But it was the jail sentence, a couple of years in prison, that ultimately ended his bodybuilding career. I mean, this guy had so much potential just starting his career. So, much like everybody on this video thus far, we definitely did not see the true potential of Paul Demayo. This gentleman, however, we actually may have. This is Jean-Pierre Fux, or as I like to call him, Jean Bidon. Big Jean Bidon Pierre Fux. It's a little bit of a different situation. You see, Jean-Pierre Fux, much like everybody on this list, he had so much potential, just loaded with bodybuilding potential, muscle all over the place. He was a true freak. Not only that, but the guy would dwarf anyone. Look at how small Dorian Yates is compared to this guy. And Dorian Yates, he's a real big man. And even Ronnie King Coleman fell victim to that dwarfing situation. And Colemanites are going to be the first to say, but the camera angle is tilted. Yeah, he still made Coleman look small. Still made Coleman look small. And not just his size. Look at the back on this guy. Jean-Pierre Fux had one of the best backs of all time. He competed for a while. He competed in the 90s. He placed as high as 7th at the Mr. Olympia event in 1997. And then in the early 2000s, like I said, he may actually have reached his prime already. In the early 2000s, it all ended in one instance. Oh, El Snappo! He was lifting weights. He was doing a photo shoot. He had something like 700 pounds squatting. And his quads gave out. I believe he tore both quads, something of that nature. It was a terrible injury. But needless to say, the guy never competed ever again. Not with a leg injury like that. You don't come back from that. You don't come back from that. You need the wheels to compete. So he retired from bodybuilding. One little instance, just lifting weights, doing a photo shoot, ended his bodybuilding career. But you know what? The guy looks very healthy. I think he's very happy. He's probably happy anyway that it happened. He's probably thinking, no more dieting, no more this, that, or the other thing. Nothing but healthy living from here on in. But anyway, yeah, Jean-Pierre Fux, Jean Bidon, one of the great ones, all ended in a tragic weightlifting incident. And that leads us to the final gentleman on this list, Shawn Rhoden. And as we all know, if you're tuning into this channel, you're a bodybuilding fan. If you're a bodybuilding fan, you know Shawn Rhoden sadly passed away in 2021. But that is not what ended his historic and legendary bodybuilding career. Unlike anybody on this list, Shawn Rhoden actually did come to fruition in his bodybuilding career. He went on to defeat Phil Heath to become the Mr. Olympia champion. But then it all ended with legal troubles. And I don't want to get into too much detail, guys. You can look up the videos if you want. That's not what my channel is about. But you guys know, you can look it up. He definitely got into some legal troubles right after he won the Olympia. So in 2019, the IFBB somewhat distanced themselves from Shawn Rhoden. They wouldn't allow him to compete. They wouldn't allow him to defend his Olympia title. So he stayed in that one-time champion brackets when we all know what would have happened in 2019. With all due respect to Brandon Curry. But I mean, Rhoden would have won. Rhoden probably would have won in 2020 also, and they also didn't let him compete. So they left him hanging, left him dangling, not sure what he should do. 2021, you could also argue that he would have won the title then. So what would have been perhaps a 4, maybe more time Olympia champion reduced to a one-timer, because sadly in 2021, shortly after the Olympia actually, Shawn Rhoden, may he rest in peace, he left us. But it was the legal troubles, the legal disputes that ended this man's bodybuilding career. And that's one of the worst endings to a bodybuilding career. And then of course, there's the people that have lost their lives, which I said I didn't want to get into that too much. There's probably videos devoted to that. There's many guys, Benaziza, things of that nature. But yes, this video is devoted to some of the worst ways, aside from, dying in the middle of your career. Some of the worst ways to end a bodybuilding career. Fan request, you guys never cease to amaze me. Come up with these great ideas, and I will do my best to deliver. Takes a little while sometimes, but I try to make a decently quality product for you lads and laddies, and maybe even a couple of little jokes. Maybe we're a little light on the jokes this time, but we'll hit her hard next time. Hit thumbs up, subscribe. Have a nice one, guys.